This is Melanie Rudd, the founder of She Overcomes. She Overcomes educates and equips women to overcome the imposter syndrome while biohacking the cyclical planning, goal syncing, and lived experiences of the rhythms of our lives through our Becoming Bold Leaders 8-week training, as well as our goal syncing 4-week program. We help women optimize time, energy, creativity, and focus in business and in life. This is a recording from Metamorphosis, the She Overcomes Women's Conference. I hope you enjoy this podcast.
I'm going to tell you a little bit about why we decided to have this event and why we called it Metamorphosis. 12 years ago this weekend, I was actually at a treatment facility. I spent a lot of money because I got a DUI and I was going through a divorce. And at that I don't know what you call it, intensive, I guess, me and my sister were there together, and it was multiple days of trying to figure out why I was broken. And I had a lot of shame, I had a lot of embarrassment, and I was mortified that people would find out. And it was multiple days, so we flew to Indiana, we went to this intensive, and the therapist, the instructor, I guess you could say, she pulled out this whiteboard near the end of this of like the multiple day thing. She pulled out this whiteboard, and on the whiteboard she drew a big tree, just like a blue tree, and what she did is she started writing all of the bad things I had told her about myself. And so like this branch was this, and this branch was that, and then the tree had fruit, and all the fruit she labeled your DUI, your divorce, this piece of shame, whatever that was. And this is what she said to me. Melanie, this is you. This is your tree of life, and everything that's happening up here is connected to these roots. And at the bottom then, she labeled my roots, and she put, she had a God root and a Melanie root and some other things. And she said, the only way for you to change what's happening in your life right now is to get down into those roots and to see why they're broken. Because everything that you're going through is fruit from that brokenness. So if you can fix the way that you think about yourself, the way you see yourself, and you can fix the way that you see God, all of your problems will change. And so I like take a snapshot of it, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I've got rotten roots. Like my dad, and we grew up, my dad was a lumberjack. We cut trees down. We ground their stumps. We got rid of them when they got bad. And so like this is kind of what's going through my mind, and I'm like, well, how do I do that? How do I change my mind about how I see myself and how I see God? And she said, I don't know. That's on you. And I remember going home, and I was so sad because I just felt broken. I got a ton of information. I had read all of the how-to books. I had done cognitive behavior therapy. I had done some talk therapy at that point, not much. But I came home feeling so depressed because I was like, well, how do I change my mind? And 6 months later, I moved out of my divorce house, and as I was still going through just this brokenness of trying to figure out if I was just inherently broken, I cried out to God, and I said this, and me crying out to God kind of meant a lot to me because you'll find out later, but my family was raised in a fundamentalist cult that was very abusive. And so I inherently had a very difficult time believing that God could love me, let alone anyone could love me. I had connected my worth to my productivity. If I could show up and be shiny and happy and all the things, I had connected that to my value and my worth. So inherently, I felt worthless, worth less than you, worth less than you. I didn't know how to change my mind. That fall, I went home and I prayed a really angry prayer. And my prayer was this: God, if you're real, You have to show up and do something because I don't know what to do. I am at the end of myself. And if you don't show up, if this all is just a waste of time, these are my two options. I am going to either end my life or I'm going to become an atheist. That's 100% easier than believing in someone who never shows up. And what happened throughout the course of that next year was I still was engaging in some of the self-destructive behavior that kept me in these cycles of worthlessness, right? And what I can tell you is that I made this decision that I was gonna do everything I could, because if this was going to be the end of my life, I was gonna go for it. A year later, I would drive. I was drinking a lot still. I didn't have the coping mechanisms to handle what was happening inside of me. And I knew where I would end my life. I knew I would drive my car off of a bridge. I knew all of that. And it really made me nervous because at that time, I just had 2 children. And I just kept thinking, if I do that, if I make that choice, I will be out of pain. And I will now set more pain in generational trauma for people who deserve so much more. And so what happened was I continued to read books. I continued to do all of that stuff. But I changed a few things. And the things that I changed were my environment. I had to be around people who believed in hope. Like hope against all hope. Not people like, oh, I hope you feel better. Like, that's great, but like I needed gritty hope. I needed the dirty, messy hope that you can lean into people and they can say, it's gonna be okay. And they can pull the gold out of you when all you see is shame. And so I shifted my environment. I invested in a ton of therapy. I loved it. I did a lot of therapy, and I invested in vulnerable, messy, honest conversations, even though they would make me look stupid, because I had nothing left. I felt like I was this public failure, and we all do this, right? We think everyone's watching, like, oh, you suck. But everyone else is like, she's amazing, you know? So like what I saw in my mirror was entirely different than what other people saw. And so I had to invest a lot into shifting this mindset, and it required a lot of time. Time processing, time healing, time reassessing what actually really, really mattered to me. And the final thing, and I'm breaking the rule of 3s, and I'm gonna break rules all day long, so just so you know that. We're supposed to do 3s, but the 4th thing I needed was courage. I needed courage to fail in front of people and just let that be okay. Courage to just show up as my messy self, give you what I have, and if you leave, you leave. And if you stay, thanks, man. And so 3 years into this process of I would go really, really deep in therapy. I would do EMDR therapy, and I would go and part of my environment shift was I started going to a faith community in spite of all of my religious trauma. In spite of that, I just was like, if I'm gonna go for God, I'm gonna go for God. And atheism will always be there. So I leaned into this faith community, and when I showed up, people were so nice. But I didn't really talk much to them. I would show up, I would sit in worship music, just calming music. I would practice being in my body, and I would weep. And then I would leave. I didn't want to talk to anybody, like ugly cry and then leave. And when people did talk to me, they would say things like really nice things, but it was deeper than deep. They were pulling gold out of me that I didn't know existed. And I would literally go home. I have it in my journals. I would go home and I would be like, who do they see? That is not who I see in the mirror. Who are they looking at? Because I just could not connect it. And it took a lot of time to work through that. And if you think about it, neuroplasticity, so we can change our minds by engaging in neuroplasticity. And so if you think about it like this, it's road construction in your heart and in your brain. So what happens during road construction? What do you have to do? What's the first thing you have to do when you see orange? you slow down. And as women, like when you were like, that was the longest minute ever, I'm like, amen, sister, I know. When you slow down, that's when the thoughts come. When you slow down and sit in your body and sit in your mind, it is very, very hard. But I had to lean into that. I was doing this for honestly, it was like 2.5 years, and I was still stuck. And I remember going to my therapist, and I said that to her. I'm like, I'm stuck. I can't, like, I'm practicing active rest. I'm practicing, I've shifted my environment. I am engaging in practicing gratitude. That can change your mind. Like, I'm doing all the things. And something was amiss because I was still engaging in the behavior that was incongruent with my moral code, incongruent with what I believed that I could be, what other people said about me, the gold that they saw in me. And so one night, it was a Tuesday night in July, and I went to one of these worship nights, and I just like sat, honestly, I didn't talk to people, like, hi, good to see you, like, you know. And I sat there, and in the room, there was like a presence that dropped, like a heavy blanket. What I would call today is glory. But like, it was like there was a peace and a presence. And while this one woman, who actually works at Microsoft, she just was singing and playing the piano. And at that moment, I remembered. I remembered being in a family member's home and having that family member abuse me at about 3 or 4 years old. I remembered how that person took my innocence from me. And I just wept as I remembered. Because it was the loss and it was the grief of a childhood. It was 30 plus years of feeling inherently dirty and broken, and it all came down to that. And so as I'm having this moment and I'm seeing myself in a bathtub, you know how you kind of dissociate, you watch yourself from over here? I was watching myself from here, in the mess, in the muck, in the gross. And I could just see myself as like a beetle, as a bug, upside down, drowning in the mess. And later I was able to go through this with EMDR and start to dissect some of this. And when I went back in and asked God, where were you when that was happening? Where were you? This thing happened, like God entered the room. I believe God entered the room. And there was like this film. It was like this dirty film. So even if I flew out, I was just going to be messy my whole life. I would be defined by that moment as a child. And in that moment, God cut this shower curtain of filth open and created a way for this little tiny beetle, this insignificant bug, to come up, and it flew out of the tub. And this is, you know, my eyes are closed, and this is what I'm seeing. It's like a movie playing in front of me, right? Like you're following that. And as this little beetle flipped around, it was a ladybug with 5 dots on her back. And I thought, that's weird. I have no connection to ladybugs, and they seem childish. So the way was made, the curtain was open, my ladybug flies out, and then she goes down the hall of this family member's house, and she leaves, and she's like dancing. And at the end of the session, my therapist was like, why do you think it's a ladybug? And I'm like, I have no idea. Wouldn't a butterfly, like butterflies have like these beautiful metamorphoses. It's like this complete metamorphosis and like wings, and that's so awesome. Like a ladybug sort of sucks. I don't know, you know? And 5 spots. And what I had, so I got really curious. Why a ladybug? Why 5? 5 represents grace. And I did know that. I knew that 5 represented grace. And what I learned, and I nerded out big on ladybugs, which is why you see them everywhere. Ladybugs actually have the same 4-stage metamorphosis that a butterfly has. Did you know that? It's called a complete metamorphosis. There's incomplete and then there's complete. And I reached out to this organic farmer that was a local farmer that at the time I was working in development, and he was one of our donors. And I said to him, can you tell me, like, I've read things about ladybugs and organic farming. Can you tell me more about that? And he said, yeah. When a farmer doesn't want to use pesticides on their harvest, on their crop, what they do is they buy crates full of ladybugs, and they pack them up, and then they drop them in the harvest. They drop them in the fields because ladybugs actually, do you know what they are? They're a predator. They are BA. Who knew? Ladybugs, not only do they have their 4-stage process, in their 4-stage process, it's really, really ugly. But do you know what? Like when mama ladybugs, when they lay their eggs, they lay them next to grasshoppers, who are arguably larger, right? They eat the grasshoppers. That's their job. Their job is literally to protect the harvest. Their moms know this, and their moms place them in front of things much bigger than them, because their job and their purpose is to protect the harvest so that many, 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 many can be nourished by that. You could say the ladybug is the farmer's most powerful weapon against the enemy. I also found out that the ladybug is the state insect of North Dakota. Fun fact. Yeah. And when ladybugs are gathered and clustered, would you like to know what they're called? Lovelies. Lovelies. What could have defined my life, what could have defined my identity, actually drove me to my destiny. It drove me to my purpose. And this is why this event is called Metamorphosis. This is why. Because I believe each one of you might not be a ladybug, but you might. Each one of you has a purpose and a divine destiny and something that you can, and you know it. You can feel it. You can feel it in your guts. You're like, something's just missing. I like what I'm doing. I enjoy my work. I like this. But there's a deep purpose and a sense that just is missing. And if you don't pay attention, and if you don't lean into that, you'll miss it. And so and I'm going to tell you this. I will tell you that moment defined the last decade of my life. Everything I have done has shifted. No tear was wasted. No tear was wasted. And people came into my life, and they loved me, and they found the gold in me when I couldn't see it for myself. And that truly is what I want to happen today for you. That is 1,000% why I am doing everything that I am doing. I wrote about this in this story. What you can think of as this: my testimony, my story is my mess of a metamorphosis. This is the prequel. This is the prequel, and why we're all sitting here today believing in the power of transformation, believing that we can lean into our season. If we have to pause, we pause. If we have to work, we work. If we're in a season of harvest, you better get after it. But don't you dare compare your rest to someone else's harvest, because you are out of season. So here's what we're creating. And here's the next phase of what we're doing. I wanted to create a community of powerful women who could lean in and find the gold. I wanted to be around people who believed in hope just as much as I do. And so as we have continued to develop some of the work that we're doing, there's a few things. There's kind of like a few, I'll call it announcements, I guess I can say, regarding today and what we're doing today. So in your swag bag, does everyone have one of these? Okay. We love tasks, don't we? So in everybody's swag bag, everyone has a gold bracelet. This is part of your job. Today, your job is this. There's a really, I should have it in front of me, but there's a really sweet phrase on there that talks about friendship and how we create friends. You have matches in this room. So everyone has a bracelet and there's a word on it. Angela, will you tell me your word? Evolve. Evolve. I love that. Okay, thanks. Evolve. So here's the game you're gonna play today. Okay, I'm gonna cheat for you. All right. Who else has Evolve? Okay, Lindsay. I don't know your name, but and sorry, Kirsten, you helped. Oh my gosh, that's so embarrassing. I'm sorry. You're lovely. Okay. The game is this. Find the people who have your bracelet. Make an introduction. Set up a coffee. Hang out. If you're weirded out by them, and there's weirdos, we're all weirdos sometimes, and you don't want to meet for coffee, just share your LinkedIn and say, I'd love to connect. But lean in. Because here's what I had. And so here's where this ties in. And actually, I'm totally going to call out Cindy's work right now. Cindy is one of our panelists. She's going to be coming up in just a second. Cindy is one of the women in my life that called out the gold. I would go to her in our faith community. I would go to our church, and I'd be up there, and I'd be like, I did it again. I suck so bad. I'm so worthless. And Cindy has supernatural eyes. I want you to know this about Cindy. Cindy has supernatural, golden, glory eyes. And she'll sit for a minute, and I'm not teasing. I just love her this much. She'll sit for a minute, and she'll be like, no, I see destiny over you. And she starts speaking these words of gold that I literally journaled and still have today. And when I felt like I was a failure again, when I felt like I was a loser, when I felt like everything was done, I would literally go back to the words she said to me and say, help me see myself like you see me. Help me see myself. Like whatever Cindy saw, give me those eyes. And we need people. We need people to help us see ourselves differently. And so this is your reminder. One, go find your word. Go find your person. Take a picture. I don't know how many people are here, and so we did have groups of 5 because 5 is the number of grace, but it might be 3. But you can go all day long and say, is your word evolve? Well, we know it's not, but you know what I'm saying. So that's one of your things today. Our job is to pull gold out of people. It is so easy to be women who see the faults in other women. It is so easy to see things that are broken. Everyone can see that. But people who can pull gold out of you are magic, and you cling to those people. Whatever you can do, you surround yourself with the people who see the gold in you, because they will change your life. And it's not like Cindy's not like, I don't like, oh, Cindy, I worship you. Like nothing like that. I just love her, and she just sees the gold in people. It's not Cindy. It's the eyes that she has to choose different for how she sees people. Because you know what she could have said? You're right, you're a drunk. You're right, you're doing all the bad things and you suck. And actually, in this faith community, we're clean here, so you should probably leave until you clean up that mess. She never did that to me. She said, you're gonna jump over the fences in front of you, and this is your time for breakthrough. So, job number 1 is find the gold, find your people, say hi. It's less awkward networking for people who are like, I don't want to introduce myself. Hey, you have to. It's your job. It's your job. So, and then I'll say this. So that's job number 1. As I wrote the Becoming Bold program. I want to tell you this about it. This was my handbook. I did it messy. I did it ugly. I did it in spite of myself, in spite of my own faults. And a couple years ago, I had finished the first manuscript, and it was bad. It was written really poorly. Like, this is the thing with manuscripts. You got to, like, edit them for, like, 1,000 years. And I had this woman, I had this agent, this book agent, and she said, you're going to need to learn how to talk about hard things on stages. And what's funny that you might not know about me is that I would pit out so bad, and I would cry, and I would literally prepare for, like, days. And I had this job in development, and I was working in anti-trafficking, and my boss was like, your job is to be the storyteller. You're supposed to raise the funds and be on stages. And I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. And I would cry and cry and cry. And then finally, a year into that job, he was like, he said to me, this is the job description. If you would like to keep this job, you need to do this thing that you're terrified of. So I had to lean in hard. I had to continue to do it, and I would cry, and I would do all the things, and then I would, like, show up and be like, here's why you should do what we're doing. Yeah, you know. But I did it scared, and I did it messy. Later, this served me really well, because when this book agent said to me, you're going to need to learn how to talk about hard things on stages. And so here's what's really funny. I tried out for a TED Talk locally. You know how Emerging Prairie, they're like, hey, come and open mic it. So I did that. I'm like, okay, I'm going to be brave. So I went and I did that. And I cried. On stage. Like, the whole Emerging Prairie team is there and all the important people. And I go up there with my, like, little microphone, and literally I get one sentence in and I burst into tears. I could not pull it together. I just wept. And I was so mortified, because you know how, does anybody else ever do anything embarrassing, or is it literally just me? I just, and just the people that were in the room, I cared what they thought. I cared a lot. I thought that was the time for me to lean into what this agent was saying, and so I did it, and then realized I maybe need a little bit more practice. And so the investment, I guess you could say, that I spent on myself was this agent said, I had someone ask me, and this is, I had this person ask me if I wanted to run in the North Dakota pageant, Mrs. International pageant, and I'm like, no, I am literally Sandra Bullock from Miss Congeniality. Like, I don't, like, I met this woman, she's, like, beautiful and stunning, and I met her for coffee in, like, those plastic, like, Sorel boots, or I don't know, like those duck ones, I don't know what they call. I had baggy jeans on, like, I was like a hot mess, and it literally was like a scene from Miss Congeniality. She's like, well, if you had, she's asking me to run this pageant, and I'm like, hard no, you have no idea who you're talking to. And this is what she said to me. If you were to win, like, if you were to talk to women, what would you want to talk about for a year? And it clicked. What the agent said to me started to click. And I'm like, actually, all I want to see is women's lives transformed. I don't know how, but that's what I want to see. And she's like, talk about that. And that's the birth of She Overcomes. Because I started to realize it's not about me on stage. It's not about Cindy. It's not about any of this stuff. It is literally about this. We are training and equipping women to go out and step into their destiny, step into their purpose. And we get to be lovelies while doing that together. And it wasn't about me. This isn't about me. This is about, there's a sea of people. There's a sea of people, sad, lost, broken, feeling insignificant, insecure, like they don't belong anywhere. It's actually about them. It's about them. And so I did win Mrs. North Dakota, which is like such a joke. You have no idea. But it taught me how to do it ugly. It taught me how to do the things that I didn't know that I was doing. And I built the plane while we were flying in. And I'm so grateful, because that's the beginning of She Overcomes. And originally I thought, I'm just going to work with entrepreneurs and it's going to look like this. And then as it developed, it was like, oh my gosh, everybody is feeling these feelings. But like no one's really talking about it. And like the thing about like the imposter, fun fact, one of the number one things with the imposter syndrome is mindset of shame. And I feel like I won that. Like I'm like, yep, ding, that's me. And the thing about shame is that it requires you to be vulnerable and honest about what you're going through. It requires vulnerability and it requires courage to say like, actually, yeah, I feel like I don't belong here. Actually, yeah, I feel like I'm the only one. Like I'm alone and everybody is at a table and they all know each other and they live these beautiful lives. And so being able to be vulnerable is like that number one thing. And so like none of us want to actually do that. But you have to do it messy. You have to lean in. So I'm just, pause, thank you. I spent that year figuring out how to talk out loud on stages. I spent that year trying to figure out how to serve women. And that's actually how the Becoming Bold program came out. And I had a different name for it last year. If any of you guys were at the She Overcomes event last year, I had a different name. But I had another woman come to town, to Fargo, and she said, she told me, this is my year of becoming bold. She's like, this is your year to lean into this. And I was like, that's terrifying because I have to put myself out there. Because I've done it wrong and I've made mistakes and people are gonna think I'm stupid and I'm like, okay, well, this is just like becoming bold. So now you're all coming with me. You're welcome. Anyway, I genuinely am so grateful that you're here. What I'm gonna ask of you is to be brave, to connect to women today, to find the gold in them, to take some time for yourself, to be present. And actually here, I'm going to tell you this. You all, each one of you has this. And this is something we're launching right now. It's called the Ezra Collective. And here's what's really sweet. As I continue to deconstruct the lies of my past, as I continue to deconstruct the way that I saw myself versus how other people saw me, I was doing a lot of research around the role of women. And then I was also doing all this research around the role of women in business and then with men, and it's like this whole thing. And Ezer is this ancient Hebrew word. And Ezer, does anybody know what Ezer means? Ezer is this ancient word that means strong power. A helper in time of need, specifically in military battle. When you connect this word to another word in the ancient Hebrew, or Greek, I'm sorry, it's one of the two. I'll Google it and let you know. It's called Ezer Kenegdo. And women in relation to men, in this definition, is this, that women have been made equally powerful, yet distinctly different. And that's actually our superpower. That's actually something that we have to lean into. I don't want to lead like a man. I'm not one. I love men. I have many men mentors who have poured into me and have loved me, but I just actually want to unapologetically just be me. And so we decided to create it's actually a virtual platform because something in the uncovering, in the breaking off of the old and embracing the new is that women, biologically, we've just been created differently. I'm not a mini man. You're not a mini man. We're not just like, oh, cute, and I wear pink. No, it's not like that. Biologically, we just have a different makeup. And this last year, and this is part of why we're here today, and you're going to get to hear from Rebecca a little bit more, but and I this afternoon. Biologically, our brains think differently. This should not be news to any of us. We're like, yes, I know that. Just like the ladybug, women typically have 4 distinct cycles, all in 1 month. So men harvest every 24 hours. They wake up and they're like, pow, I'm ready to hit it, nailing it, right? Women, biologically, our brain literally thinks differently in our 4 different seasons, if you will. I stumbled upon this listening to a podcast, and I was like, wait. That's why, and Rebecca said this on this podcast, she's like, have you ever committed to going to an event and then 2 weeks later you're like, oh, I hate everybody and I don't want to go to that event at all? And some of you probably feel like that right now. Sorry. Sorry and you're welcome. It's because of the way that your estrogen and progesterone are spiking. They're different. And so like this was something I learned. When you have your period, for example, with our unique powerhouses of our bodies, which is why it's so important to be in them and connect, when you have your period, your left and your right brain hemisphere are connected more than they're going to be for the rest of the month. Who's entrepreneurs in here? Oh, we got a decent amount of entrepreneurs. If you're an entrepreneur, when do you think you should be setting some goals and reviewing what happened last month? When do you think you should be taking a minute to like reassess your core values and be like, am I doing the right thing? Am I working with the right people? Like, do you think during your period would be the best time for a power pause so that you can reflect on what happened back there so you know where you're going here? Absolutely. Anybody who works in any business, you're looking at KPIs. If you have the power to block off 2 hours of your day to review because you're the most analytical, don't you think you should do it then? As I started to look at why is it 75% of women struggle with the imposter syndrome, and some men do too. But why women? We are overeducated powerhouses and we don't even know it because we're comparing ourselves to a 24-hour harvest. And so this process of unbecoming that I was and starting to be in my body and to recognize I'm not broken. I'm a girl. That's really good news. That's really good news. It was really good news for me. I'm happy that you're here to enjoy that. So now I want to also say Tasha is here, of course, with Fargo Center for Plastic Surgery, and she's going to talk about perimenopause and menopause. And here's the thing is if you're not cycle syncing, goal syncing, because you are in this like lovely season of your 40s or whenever for you, everybody's body is different. There's different things that happen. And she's got some fascinating stats about what happens to women as they go through perimenopause. The way it messes with your mind. I was working with someone who was going through the Becoming Bold program, and she was talking about, protect her. She was talking about some challenges that she was having, and she said, I was in so much rage. This person who was being inappropriate at work, I just wanted to rage quit and just leave and be done and tell them to explicitive. And then she met with her doctor and realized her hormones were off. She's not broken. Like being in your body is way more than a lovely 5-minute exercise with Allison. Understanding the biology of how your body works in conjunction to practicing how you shift your mindsets is going to be your transformation. You don't get to do it dissociating because you have got to pull your brain from over here and align it with your body here for optimal productivity and optimal just life. One thing I want to say to this is this. I can eat pizza every single day. And will I live? I will live, right? I can eat pizza. I love how you're like, where are you going with this? I can eat pizza for every meal every single day. And I can go to work and I can do the things and I can chug my coffee and I'm going to be okay, right? But if I eat spinach, if I pay attention to my body and recognize that I need rest and not another HIIT workout, if I eat strawberries and maybe throw some nuts in there or whatever, I'm going to have a more optimal experience, right? This is what I'm talking about. Can you muscle through? Can you muscle through and do all the things? 100%, you can. It's going to burn you out. 3 times I have experienced adrenal fatigue where my body flushed for over a month because I kept pushing harder. Because remember, my lie was that I'm only worthy if I'm producing something. Sitting still is actually the hardest thing for me, not working hard. I can work hard. Sitting still and pausing is actually where the gold happens, and it's my biggest struggle. And so today is all about this. It's about recognizing your identity, recognizing that you are so powerful. You might just be comparing yourself to someone else's season, and you might just be like going in rumination circles, feeling like a failure. I don't know that any of us need another conference and need like more information. I think what we're all after is actually transformation, right? So, we're going to be talking a little bit more about this today. We're going to be talking about how you can optimize the brain-body connection by goal syncing. If you're someone and you're like, actually, there's just got to check under the hood. I want to do some of this mindset stuff. Let me know. Like, all of the information is on this. And also we're creating it. This is a digital platform. Here's why. If you want us to help you cycle sync, I guess you could say, it's going to require us to talk about our periods and stuff that like typically we don't talk about at work, right? And so we need a digital private platform that you have to come in privately. Otherwise, it's like, I'm not going to create a Facebook group so everybody could be like, oh, she's menstruating. Let's talk about that. That's weird. So I just want you to know, this community, if this resonates with you, it's free to join. I want you also to know this. I'm an entrepreneur, and I, like I said, have been told, if it's perfect, you waited too long. It's not perfect. We're developing it. We're pulling this stuff together, and I just want to invite you in. If you feel like any of this resonates with you, I'd like to help you tap into your actual genius and not have to continue to consume information, but actually pursue your own transformation. And finally, this is going to require, we're creating the environment. There will be investment, the deeper that you go if you want that. It's going to require your time. Question, someone who got a free ticket here versus someone who paid $10,000 for a ticket, who's going to have higher value and staying longer? The person who invested, right? The person who's like, I got skin in this game, versus the person who's like, oh, I'm going to sneak out and grab a coffee. Your time and investment matter a lot. And I can tell you this, I am not here today because I've done it perfectly. And I'm not even here today for me. I'm here because I have 3 sweet children who deserved a good mom. I'm here because I did not want to pass the generational stuff over here onto them because they actually deserved more from me. I figured I could be okay. I'll figure it out. I can just muscle through it. But I actually wanted to make the changes because I knew it was for the next generation. I knew that I did not want my daughter going through life feeling like a failure, feeling like she was worthless, feeling like everything she does doesn't matter. And sometimes we all feel that way. That's part of the human experience, right? And so I want you to think about this from that generational standpoint. And so environment, investment, time. Number 4, courage. It's going to take you courage to step into today, to step into the rest of these conversations. Here's what today is about. It's about embracing your seasons, stepping into your transformation, and doing it with people who are safe, doing it with women who aren't trying to compete with you, doing it not just for yourself, but doing it for the people who are coming after you. And here's the last thing I'm going to leave you with until we transition and our panelists can start making their way up in just a second. Is the last thing I want to say about the ladybug is this. After the ladybug has been hatched, do you want to know what the first thing that she does is? She climbs up and she goes towards the light. They migrate towards the light. In the 3rd phase of the ladybug's metamorphosis, she's actually hidden under a leaf. That's where it's safest for her to have that final, messy bit of transformation. And as soon as she finishes this transformation, she heads towards the light. I think that's important because I actually really do think we are the light in other people's lives some days. Acknowledging someone, saying hello. You might not get to find the gold in everyone, right? But you can be the light. You can be the light, and you can go towards that light. And that's really what we want to offer you today, is light, a little bit of gold, a little bit of information to equip you so that you can feel stronger and more confident with what you're doing. It's not about stats, and it's not about who's in the room. This actually just genuinely is about you leaning into your superpowers.
Thank you so much for joining us in our mission to remind women of who they are, how to professionalize their strengths, and step into their purpose. To learn more about She Overcomes and our Becoming Bold cohorts, you can go to sheovercomes.co. To learn more about our virtual community, the Ezer Collective, go to ezer.disco.co. And finally, to learn more about my book, Irreverent, a memoir of reckless hope, unexpected love, and finding my voice, you can find that at melaniemichelle.co/books. Until next time, Overcomer, it's time for you to find your purpose, chase it with courage, and step into your unique gifts. Thank you.